If you struggle with what to feed your kids for lunch that is nutritionally dense, from scratch, quick to make, and picky eater approved, you are not alone. This is something I've spent a lot of time trying to systematize because as much as I want my kids to eat healthy from scratch meals 3 times a day, I also have to make the prep end of things sustainable. Oh, and plot twist, all of the ingredients I use are from our food storage or what we produce here on our farm. Our family is attempting to stay out of the grocery store this year and use the food we preserved and bought in bulk in the fall. So this won't be a big grocery haul video where I then just chop up a bunch of grocery store food and throw it in containers. I need to shop the cellar and make everything from scratch, including grinding the grains. But don't worry, even if you prefer to buy your flour pre-ground, you'll still be able to do everything I'm doing here today, just with some substitutions like all-purpose flour instead of fresh ground, or fresh fruit instead of dried. Either way, I'm hoping you'll find me taking you along as I prep and serve lunch this week helpful. It is Saturday when I started filming this and most of my kids are skiing today, so I'm hoping to take advantage of the quiet and hopefully get a lot of next week's lunches planned and prepped. Last minute meal prep is not only a huge stressor for me, it's also a big time waster in my days. I shouldn't say waster. Obviously, making nutritious food is important, and involving your kids in the prep is good to do when you're able. But lately, I have been slacking on prepping food ahead of time, so I feel like I wake up, make breakfast, clean up breakfast, and then it's time to start lunch. By the time we finish lunch, I look at the clock and feel completely defeated because the day is half gone and it feels like all I did was make food. I have done videos in the past on my morning kitchen power hour system, but frankly, this pregnant mom of a toddler who still doesn't sleep at night is not getting up early to prep food. It's a wonderful system, but this is not the season, which is why I'm switching it up and doing this bulk lunch prep. Okay, so I started first thing in the morning with milling my flour. With that flour, I will be making bread for sandwiches, tortillas for pinwheels, soft pretzels, bagel bites, and crackers. And the reason I wanted to get it going right away was because I just learned a new trick with whole wheat flour, where if you let it sit in the water and lemon juice for 30 minutes or so before adding in the remaining ingredients, this will let the flour absorb the water and the lemon juice helps soften the bran. Ultimately, what this is going to do is to keep you from thinking your dough is still too sticky to work with and adding in too much flour, which is going to make a more dense bread. Although I will say that it is such a careful balance that just takes practice. The other day, I ended up leaving my dough too wet, which caused it to overproof way too quickly. So I started by prepping in these bowls the flour, the water, and a little bit of lemon juice for all of my recipes. After the family left, I got started on the bread since it takes the longest. I'm not going to share the specifics of the recipes I do today. If I've shared them here before, I'll just link the recipes in tutorial videos below. Also, I have a sandwich bread recipe for regular all-purpose flour and yeast, one for fresh milled flour and one for sourdough, so choose whichever one is your favorite. Today, I'm using sourdough and fresh milled flour. Once my bread dough was mixed and ready for stretch and folds, I started on my pretzel dough. Soft pretzels are something we love making and they're so easy. I actually will just share this complete recipe from start to finish since I don't think I've shared it here before. To a stand mixer, add 1 cup of warm water and a ½ cup of sourdough starter. Whisk to combine. Then put on your dough hook and add 1/4 cup brown or maple sugar, 3½ cups fresh milled flour, and then knead that on medium speed for about 7 minutes. Place it in a warm place until doubled. This will take a few hours depending on the temperature of your kitchen. You can also pop it into your oven with the light on to speed up the process. Next, roll out the dough into a big rectangle and cut it into strips. Then you're going to take each of those strips and roll it into a rope. Then to shape them, you cross it again, and then flip up. You can probably do this better than I can, but hey, it works. And you can also skip shaping these altogether and just make pretzel bites, but I think the shape is half the fun. As you shape them, set them aside on a parchment paper lined baking sheet. Cover and let rise for about 1 hour more. When you're getting close to that time being up, mix up a solution of 3 cups of hot water and 1/4 cup of baking soda. Mix well. Dip the whole pretzel into the solution and then place it back on your baking sheet. Preheat your oven to 475 Fahrenheit and let the pretzels sit for about 10 to 15 minutes while your oven preheats. Now is also the time to add pretzel salt or whatever other toppings you'd like on them. Bake for 8 to 10 minutes, but watch them closely since every oven is different and the baking soda solution will make them turn very brown very quickly. After you remove them from the oven, brush immediately with melted butter. Now, I will say that the all-purpose flour version of these pretzels is definitely prettier, but these whole wheat ones are very good and soft, and the flavor can't be beat. But if you're looking for the traditional look of a soft pretzel, then you'll need to use the all-purpose flour. I'll make up the cheese sauce the day I serve these. That just takes a few minutes, but I am going to go ahead and pre-shred the cheese so that this isn't something I have to spend much time on. During the time when my pretzels needed to rise, I worked on making my tortillas and bagel bites. Now the tortillas do not have to rise, obviously, but I have found that letting the dough sit for a while and kneading a few times allows the gluten to relax and it rolls out so much easier. I used to fight with my tortillas wanting to just shrink back every time that I rolled them out, but a little resting time is the fix for this. I also shared how to make tortillas previously, and one of the common questions I got was whether you can use fresh milled flour, since a video I did showed all-purpose. So yes, you can use fresh milled, and they still turn out amazing. The only difference is that I add in a bit more water, since the fresh milled flour is a bit more thirsty. While that dough rests, I'm going to make my bagel bites. These are ridiculously easy and are often a go-to when I need a quick lunch, but they're easy to prep ahead and reheat as well. You can even freeze these if you want to really plan ahead. I'm going to start by adding to a large bowl 3/4 cup plain yogurt, 1/4 cup of water, 1½ cups fresh milled flour, 2 teaspoons baking powder, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Mix the dough together well. It will be pretty sticky, but if it's too sticky to work with, you can add in a bit more flour. Let this dough rest for about 15 minutes, then preheat your oven to 350 Fahrenheit. If you're making these at the last minute, you can definitely skip the rest period. Now take a heaping tablespoon of dough and spread it out into a circle. Don't roll it too thin or the dough will break open when they're baking. Then you take a heaping teaspoon of cream cheese, make it into a ball, and place it in the center. Then form the dough around the cream cheese ball, making sure to seal any seams. I usually roll it between my hands at the end. Place them on a parchment paper-lined baking sheet. You're going to repeat this until all the dough is used up. Then brush a little egg white onto the tops and sprinkle with whatever seasonings your kids like, or you can skip seasonings altogether. We like everything bagel seasoning, but you could also do a little cinnamon sugar or get creative. Bake those for 15 to 20 minutes or until they begin to brown and are cooked through. I'm going to let these cool and then they can just go into a Tupperware container ready to be reheated for lunch. While those are cooling, I made my tortillas. I go through my process for making these in a previous video, so I'll link that. This video goes over my tricks for making sure that they are nice and soft, which will be really important for making pinwheels, otherwise they would just fall apart. Okay, I have my tortillas, pretzels, and bagel bites done, and now it's time to shape my sandwich bread for its final rise. After I got the bread rising, I just had one more thing to make with all of that flour I ground this morning, and that is sourdough crackers. I'm going to make a whole video showing all of my cracker recipes because I get asked often for those, but this is another one of those recipes where even if it's noon and I haven't prepped anything, they can be made very quickly and my kids love them. I will say that they don't taste as good when they're made ahead of time, so I'm actually going to experiment a little here. I'm going to make the crackers and then put them in my dehydrator for a bit. I think it's the moisture in the crackers that makes them go stale so quickly, so I thought this might be a fix. Spoiler alert, it worked great, so I will definitely be doing that in the future. The only mistake I made is making them way too thick. I actually forgot that this recipe makes 4 balls of dough, not 2, and if they had been thinner, they would have dried much better. And I don't have a certain time or temperature to share with you as far as drying them. I just turned on the dehydrator and pulled them out when they were crisp and felt dry. Then I just made sure to store them in an airtight container. They were wonderful, even days later. After all of my bread products were done, the rest felt pretty easy. And yes, I was juggling this with a baby, and it all felt doable because nothing really required me to stick to a strict time schedule. You can totally sit and nurse your baby, start a load of laundry, and just fit this prep into your day. I think when we think ahead to a whole day of food prep, it can be really intimidating, but know that after you make a recipe a few times, it really doesn't take much brain power anymore, and it's much easier to just fit the food prep into the flow of your day without it feeling like an all-consuming task. Okay, on to the remaining tasks that I wanted to get done on this day. First, I'm going to hard boil some eggs, which I do in my Instant Pot. This isn't hard, but I will say that I always forget to take them out on time. It never fails. So I will say, on this one thing, I have started setting an alarm on my phone so that they don't overcook. If you've never done hard-boiled eggs in an Instant Pot before, it's just 5 minutes at pressure, or if you have an egg button, I think it automatically goes to 5 minutes. And then a 5-minute natural release before you release the rest of the steam and then put them in an ice bath. I always hear the pressure cooker beep when it's done, but it's that 5-minute natural release that gets me. Next, I'm going to chop up some carrots and make some more ranch dressing for dipping. By the way, I used to buy baby carrots because they were so convenient for lunches, but then I learned how they make them, and now I just cut up my own. I thought about pre-slicing some cheese and chopping apples ahead of time as well, but decided against it and I was running out of time. But at least those are fairly quick and easy to do as I'm serving lunch. I already have yogurt in my fridge since this is a weekly staple that we always keep on hand, so I just need to make sure that I have some jam ready to mix in the fridge, and that's our easy way to flavor our yogurt. And if the jam isn't very sweet, sometimes we add in a little maple syrup or fruit as well. The last thing I was able to get done today was making an apple dip. The apple dip is really simple. It's just cream cheese, maple sugar, and vanilla in a food processor. I don't even measure. You really can't go wrong with this combination. I do not recommend using a liquid sweetener in this though because it does make it too soggy. By this time, my bread was through its final rise, so I popped it into the oven, and by this time, my family was coming home. So instead of being disappointed that I didn't get every last thing prepped that I had planned, I thought about how helpful it would be to have the things I did complete done. Alright, now I'll take you through the week with us and show you exactly what I served. Monday, we had the bagel bites and yogurt with jam and berries. While we eat lunch, we like to watch World Watch, which is a conservative Christian worldview news program for kids. I love that we get all the important news highlights from the day without worrying that my kids will see inappropriate things. Okay, Tuesday we had sourdough pretzels with the cheese sauce. I warmed up the pretzels in the oven while I made the cheese sauce. It's super quick to whip up. You start by melting 2 tablespoons of butter and then whisking in a tablespoon of cornstarch to make a roux. Then slowly add in 2 cups of milk, add a little seasoning salt, and heat up the milk until it's hot but not boiling. Remove it from the heat and slowly whisk in 2 cups of shredded cheddar cheese. I like to put this in a preheated mini crock pot to keep it warm longer, but we've done it in ramekins and bowls and that works too. To go with the pretzels and cheese sauce, I served apple slices and the apple dip that I prepped on Saturday. Wednesday is usually a day we head to the mountain to ski or go on some kind of adventure, so I had planned a meal that can be easily taken along. Unfortunately, we were stuck home with a sick kiddo, but it was still a good meal. We had hard-boiled eggs, cheese, the sourdough crackers, pickles, and smoothies. Thursday's lunch was cream cheese pinwheels, which I had planned to fully prep Saturday, but it was still nice having the tortillas prepped anyway, and it didn't take me very long to put them together, especially having a plan. And then with them, we had carrots and ranch. Friday's meal was easy to pack up for co-op, and it was peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with the bread I had made Saturday, dried fruit, and granola bars. I have the recipe for these bars over on my blog, thefromscratchfarmhouse.com. These bars are actually something I prepped the night before since I didn't get to them during my Saturday prep session. They are super quick to make and kids can make them easily too. While it was so nice to have most of the week's lunches prepped and ready for the week, I don't know if I can commit to doing this every Saturday, but we'll see. I'm thinking a more sustainable plan would be to recruit some kids to help get it done just sometime between Friday and Monday. And I think if we got in this routine, it would be pretty close to life-changing to free up that much time each week. My little girls have been enjoying prepping breakfast the night before, and I think they would actually enjoy taking on a lunch prep task as well. Alright, thanks for meal prepping along with me today, and hopefully I'll see you here next week for both my Ditch the Grocery Store Challenge video on Tuesday, and then on Friday for regular videos on homemaking, homesteading, homeschooling, and food from scratch.